Greetings and welcome to this RS 100 class on the Sociology of Religion. Learning objectives for this class. By the end of the class, you will understand the general area that the Sociology of Religion covers, and you will also be able to identify some leading historical figures in the field. First, I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to the sociological approach to religion. Then we're going to look at some important historical figures in this area very briefly. And finally, we're just going to compare the differences between classical and modern sociology. So an introduction to the sociological perspective. What is this? What is sociology? And what is the sociology of religion? Why are sociologists interested in the study of religion? Well, sociology is concerned with the study of society, things like social institutions and social phenomena, and anything that affects our social lives, especially religion. Given that around 90% of the world's population is religious or spiritual, we would expect sociologists to be very concerned with this. How do they study religion, and how do they claim we need to study religion? Well, they argue that it is impossible to understand society without understanding religion, and vice versa. It is impossible to understand religion without understanding the society within which it operates. There is a need to understand society, but they also recognize that every society is different, so we need to understand societies as unique cultures. What methods do they use to study religion in society? They use many, but one common type is the interpretative approach. This is the idea that we have to try to interpret meaning within a culture, but we must also be careful about our own assumptions. Weber said that we need to understand their worldview, how things operate in a comprehensive, explanatory, meaning-making system. So for instance, we have to be a little like aliens whenever we approach cultures. Again, this is a little bit like being an outsider and recognizing your influences. For instance, the role of women in society. As outsiders, we may see some women as oppressed because, for instance, they are at home and they have children and they stay at home and they don't work. But from an insider's point of view, by understanding their meaning system, these women may see themselves as important pillars in society, so that they are really carrying on generations of tradition and they may be intensely proud of what they do. And Geertz has an example of this that's quite famous, of a wink. So for instance, if I wink at you now, if you could see me, what does that mean? Does it mean I'm giving you a clue for the exam? Does it mean that I like you? Does it mean that I'm gesturing about something else? And so we can interpret one action, such as a wink, in many different ways. And we have to be careful that that interpretation is correct. And to know whether it's correct, we have to understand the culture and the context within which it operates. And this is like religion. Let's move on to some important historical figures. Can you identify who they are? They all have beards, but who are they? Briefly, I'm going to explain who these people are because they're covered in more detail in the readings. Durkheim said that religion is society, that religion serves a social purpose. Again, sociology of religion really seeks to uncover the structure of society through things known as structuralism or functionalism. These are just two broad approaches, but really underlie the idea that religion serves a social purpose and we have to uncover the structure of society. And nowhere more is this approach advocated in Emile Durkheim. And Durkheim said that religion is society. It helps to maintain the stability of a society, much like a plant grows and has different organisms, and that it also promotes the social solidarity of groups. And he referred in his theory to the origins and nature of totemism. And I'm not going to go into this in detail, but he did say that when people worship totems, so symbols of the clan. They were actually worshipping themselves, something greater than themselves, something higher than themselves. They were in fact worshipping themselves, and religion is society. Karl Marx, as you know, had quite a negative view of religion. He had a wider theory about capitalism, and he said that religion is the opiate of the people. I hope you remember this. That religion is really a negative force that serves to keep people, in a sense, entrenched in their own way so that they wouldn't fight against the bourgeoisie, so they wouldn't fight against the middle classes, that they would be content with having little food and little water. And that religion served as a means, as a chain to keep them locked up. So it's quite a negative view of religion. And again, it's related to his broader political views. Weber also had a negative view of religion, less negative than Marx, but he also had ideas about how religion was really an irrational form of view and how scientific reasoning would eventually take over and that religion would disappear as society advances. Like Marx, he thought that we would break free of this irrational thinking and become irreligious. And of course, this has not happened. Clifford Geertz, I've mentioned him before, was more modern theorist, and I'm not going to tell you what his definition of religion is because you should remember it from the previous lectures we've had. As you know, he really emphasized religion as meaning-making systems, that it makes people adhere to a certain set of values, it encodes these values in a way that makes them important to people, and like the wink, that religion creates meaning for people within religious systems. Now we've covered some of the theorists, let's look at the difference between classical and modern sociology of religion. Classical sociology is related to social evolutionism. This was proposed by Herbert Spencer, who was influenced by Darwin, on the origins and development of religion. Very briefly, it is the idea that, of course, white Victorians were at the top of this social evolution chain, and the primitive peoples who believed in things like animism were at the bottom, that some religions could be placed on this trajectory of development, and that science was at the ultimate pinnacle, and that primitive peoples were at the bottom. And of course, this is really a misplacement of Darwin's theory of evolution. It's wrong, and it has been shown as such. Also associated with classical sociology was this idea of logical positivism. And this is the idea that logic and science are on the one hand, versus that which we cannot prove, which is science and superstition. Again, it links in with social evolutionism, that we have irrational religion on the one hand and logical science on the other. And this has also largely been discredited. Actually, rather ironically, it's also revived in people like Richard Dawkins, who propose a similar argument. But I would like to suggest, and feel free to argue with me, that really this, through the development of anthropology and psychology of religion, has been largely discredited. Again, compare this idea to the video of Evans Pritchard and his work on the witchcraft of the Azandi, showing how actually logic and reason, superstition and religion coexist, and they function in much the same way actually. Let's look at modern sociology and religion. Well, really, this approach fell out of favour, mainly for the views I've just mentioned, but was revived around the 1960s. There was a real recognition that religion has a function and roles in society. Sociology of religion became more interdisciplinary, so they engaged more with anthropology, and this was largely a result of their revival. And they became more methodologically diverse. So rather than just interpretation, they started to look at more quantitative methods as well. So categorizing, using surveys, that sort of thing. There became stronger and weaker forms of relativism. Relativism is the idea that there is no such thing as true knowledge. So for instance, moral relativism would say that there's no such thing that is morally right or morally wrong. Religious relativism would perhaps say the similar thing, but there are stronger forms we can know nothing about the truth, and weaker forms, that we can know something. They also focus on the subjectivity of the researcher. We've talked a little bit about this, and really the problem of belief, and Evans Pritchard captures this. Although he's more associated with the anthropology of religion, in fact he could equally be attributed to the sociology of religion. He was influenced by sociologists of the time. Nowadays, sociologists really focus on understanding social change, and especially social change in religion. So how do religions of Africa accommodate and adjust to Western colonialism? These are really quite interesting questions. They also focus on religion and identity. What does it mean, for instance, to be a Catholic in America, to have other religious ideas and identities in American culture and throughout the world? They look at religion and conflict, and this is again related to religion and identity, and also people changing their religious beliefs and ideas. So through one's life course, life trajectory, what causes someone to change religious beliefs? What causes someone to be converted or to become an atheist or religious or vice versa? Thanks very much for tuning in. I hope I've given you a brief overview of the sociology of religion, the methods they use, some famous theorists, and also a little bit about what sociologists of religion study. I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and of course you must complete the reading to gain a full understanding. Thanks.